so many of the great photographers of the second half of the 20th century. And she had been trained in the 40s and 50s by, I think, one of the best photographers to come out of Hungary, Andre Didienes. And he taught her, I think, everything that she really knew about photography. It was a very interesting experience. I was scared, and when I met her the first time, I was introduced to her by the press agent. You know, she asked me my name, kind of, and I said, well, I'm the big bad wolf. I didn't know what to say. And she looked at me, kind of with a little bit of a smile, and said, how old are you? And I said, well, I'm 23 years old. But I've been shooting pictures since I was 15. I was trying to build the confidence and say, no, I'm a court photographer. And she looked at me and she said, well, I was 23, I made this movie, and I made this movie, and so forth. And she says, I think you're a little too young to be that bad, but when you grow up, you certainly will. And I did. You know, I traveled the road for 2 years, became a photojournalist, and in 1962, Perry Matchwood worked for a lot, asked me to photograph her again on a movie she was making called Something's Gotta Give. At that point in her life, I didn't realize that she was fighting a lot of demons in her life and struggling. I was on the way up, learning about business, learning about exclusivity, learning about intellectual property rights. We didn't use those words in that days. We just said, you know, own the copyright. But Marilyn Monroe was trying to prove that she was a great actress, trying to establish herself as more than just a sex symbol, and struggling with all of that. She was getting paid $100,000 a year, by $100,000 a picture by 20th Century Fox, and Elizabeth Taylor was getting paid $1 million approximately for Cleopatra at the same time. And she tried to prove to 20th Century Fox that she had as much publicity value to generate ticket sales. And she wound up, as the memoir talks about, using the only weapon that she had left. She had used up all her other weapons. She had destroyed her credibility with the studio by always being late, not coming out, not showing up, doing things that the studio felt was improper. And she resorted to the only weapon she had left, and that was the use of her body in publicity. I just happened to be there at the right time, at the right time, at the right place, and had enough business sense to be able to go into this kind of unofficial partnership with her. Unspoken, never delineated in writing. She needed the publicity, and I needed the exclusivity. There was another photographer, William Reed Whitfield, who was a fine photojournalist himself and a writer. By the way, he wrote the first 2 years of all the episodes with Alan Balter of Mission Impossible. Probably a better writer than a photographer. He and I combined our photographs together for a number of years, and we had this exclusive set. Marilyn had conditions. The conditions were that if we sold the pictures, Liz Taylor could not appear in the same magazine. And that was a hard condition. She had certain other conditions. She was a businesswoman. She was smart. She understood. She had been run over by enough trucks in her life and had survived that she knew what it was all about. I was still very cocky in those days. I remember saying to her one day, well, you know, you're already famous, Marilyn, now you're going to make me famous. And she looked at me and said, don't be so cocky, Larry. It's very easy for me to replace you. And it was Marilyn. You know, there was no messing around. There were moments that were really very, very sad. I didn't realize how sad it was at that time. But as I look back years later, I remember once talking to her about the fact that my first wife and I were going to have our second child, and that Suzanne was almost 2 years old. And all of a sudden she went inside of herself and started talking as if she was talking to a psychiatrist or somebody that wasn't there, about, you know, how her body was rejecting the fetus all the time. I don't think she used the word fetus. I don't remember as I write exactly what the words were that she said. How she wanted to have a child, but yet every time she became pregnant, the body rejected it. That her mother was in mental institutions. Her father may have committed suicide. And she was scared that the genes would be passed down through her to an offspring. So there were these tender moments that I didn't even understand completely at that time, because the second shooting, I'm 25 years old, and really interested in getting a down payment on my house. As I said to Marilyn, if I get the down payment by selling the pictures, I can put a sign over the door that says this is the house that Marilyn built. But yet she was very, very kind and warm. I mean, one night we were working very late, not because of me, but because of the studio. She'd shown up 5.5 hours late, and they had to finish scenes by a certain day because an actor was moving on to another movie. I told her I had to go home, that my wife was trying to train me to be home so that, when the kids went to bed, they'd at least see their father. And she said, oops. Well, 1, 2, 3. She said, no, we really need to hang around. So I hung around. By the time I got home, Judy was at the door, and I opened the door, and I thought, wow, now I'm really going to get it. But she had a smile on her face. And Marilyn had sent her 2 dozen roses and said, sorry to keep you married. There were these moments, it wouldn't be hard for her to find out where I lived. She'd just send her driver or somebody, to speak to the studio and find out. But there was all of this movement in Marilyn, the struggle to prove that she was a fine actress, the struggle to convince those around her that she had the ability to generate ticket sales, which was very important, and the struggle to keep her name out there in a positive way. And I just happened to, on this one occasion in '62, meet her for 3 weeks again. She was a woman, as I look back now, who was always searching, as I've said several times before, for the darkness of night, so that she could run away into sleep and into the darkness, and find her own safe haven, as so many people that are struggling that way. I mean, it maybe happened to Michael Jackson the same way. But she went into the darkness on the evening of August 4th and never came out of it. For those that many people ask these questions, yes, I saw her with Bobby Kennedy, as I write, but I wasn't in the bedroom with him, so I have no idea whether they had a relationship. Yes, I was privileged to her drinking Dom Perignon and taking lots of pills, but yet I don't know what took place that night, how many pills she took, or how much champagne she had. And I don't think she was drinking that night Dom Perignon. But seriously, the pictures do bring back memories. When I wrote this chapter in the memoir, I had to call my first wife. What did I say when I came home after this incident? And then I called friends, what did I say here? Even my daughter reminded me of things I had told her when she was 12 and 13 years old about Marilyn. So the reason it's called The Memories, because it is memories, and I have to thank a lot of people that aided me. The pictures triggered my memories, and I'll end with just one little part of the story, which is interesting to me, may not be to you. For 50 years, a lot of these pictures I didn't even see. Well, on that wall there's a contact sheet, the first roll of film that I ever shot in Maryland. And I had not seen it in 49 years. It went into Look Magazine's files. I owned the copyright. Look Magazine, for tax purposes, donated it to the Library of Congress. This is a true story. They donated all their photographers' work. And the Library of Congress, giving Look Magazine, the publishing company, this big tax break, would not give the pictures back to the photographers. Well, in 2008, I had an exhibit in Beijing, China. And I went to the ambassador there, and I said, look, I got to get my pictures back from the Library of Congress, and I need them for this exhibit in China. And believe it or not, he wrote a letter to the ambassador, and that's how I got my pictures back. So I got my pictures back from Look Magazine because I had an exhibit in Beijing. But they went into a box, and they went into Iron Mountain storage. And I didn't even look at them. 19 assignments, and so when we decided to do this book, my wife, Nina, said, we got to look at everything. So we pulled out, the database, and there was these pictures from Look Magazine. And I opened the box, and for the first time, I remembered the contact sheet that Marilyn had marked all the pictures that she killed. To give you an example of how that triggers your memory as a writer, is I immediately remembered the whole incident. That I was standing at the door of a dressing room, scared to go in, and I was shooting her slightly from the back and the side, and how she caught me in the mirror and then said, you know, you're not going to get a good picture from that angle, and I'm not going to approve any of them. But if you go over there, you might get a good picture. And I went over there, and she turned her face, and I only had to hit one frame, and the picture's over there. It's an extraordinary picture. Believe it or not, it had never been published, and I had not seen it in 49 years. So there are many pictures here that see the light of day for the first time. But nevertheless, I thank you for coming. Enjoy the evening. On the way out, Zenith Watches has been kind enough to help us with a nice gift tag. And by the way, they helped sponsor the Norman Mailer Center that I'm very proud that I co-founded with Norris Mailer. And Don Perignon Champagne, who is also another company under LVMH, who sponsor events with the Norman Mailer Center, and now they're joining me in this exhibit. So I thank them for the collaboration. And on the way out, when you do leave, there's a copy of Nan Talisa's wonderful little memoir that she's publishing of mine. And I thank Nan and Doubleday and Random House for collaborating also on the book. Thanks a lot, and enjoy the evening. Of course, we thank Caution also. Benedict Caution is not here to say thanks. I forget a little bit. But nevertheless, thank you very, very much.